The fluorescent lights hummed above Sarah Chen as another contraction tore through her body. 22 hours of labor and still no sign of her husband. She gripped the hospital bed rails, knuckles white, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cold air conditioning. Where is he? She whispered to herself, eyes fixed on the door that remained stubbornly closed. When it finally opened, her heart leaped with relief until she saw David's face, disheveled, reeking of alcohol, his eyes cold and distant. Well, this is quite the scene, he slurred, pulling an envelope from his jacket and tossing it onto her bedside table. Sign these when you're done. Sarah's vision blurred as she read the bold letters divorce papers. You're leaving now? Her voice cracked. David scoffed. Look at yourself, Sarah. You think I want this? You're a mess. Nobody's going to want damaged. Goods! The nurse stepped forward, appalled. Sir, you need to leave if you're going to upset the patient. She's not my patient anymore, David said coldly. Do whatever you want with the kids. I'm done. He walked out without looking back, leaving Sarah alone with the weight of his words and the life struggling to emerge from her body. Something inside her broke. But not from the pain, from clarity. Then I'll do it alone, she whispered, her jaw set with newfound determination. 2 hours later, the cries of twin girls filled the room. As Sarah held Lily and Rose for the first time, tears streaming down her face, she made a vow that would define the rest of their lives. You will never feel unwanted. Not from me, not ever. 5 years had passed since that night in the hospital, and Sarah had kept her promise. Every morning, she watched her daughters eat breakfast in their small apartment. Their laughter filling the cramped space with warmth no amount of money could buy. But the cost of keeping that promise was written in the dark circles under her eyes and the way her hands shook slightly from exhaustion. Mama, why don't you ever eat with us? Lily asked one morning, her 5-year-old eyes too perceptive. Sarah smiled, placing another slice of toast on Rose's plate. I'm not hungry yet, sweetheart. You two eat up. The truth was simpler and more painful. It wasn't enough for 3. After dropping the girls at school, Sarah took the subway to her cleaning job at the corporate offices downtown. Her college degree in marketing hung uselessly on the wall of her bedroom, but Bills didn't care about degrees. In the evenings, she worked as a freelance graphic designer, hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table while the girls slept. Every project was a lifeline. Every client a small victory against the mounting stack of bills. You're doing great, Mama, Rose had whispered one night. Finding Sarah still working at 2 a.m., she'd crawled into her lap and fallen asleep there, small. Arms wrapped around Sarah's neck. Those were the moments that made it all worthwhile. When her daughters drew pictures of their family, it was always the 3 of them, smiling, complete. Had no idea they were poor. To them they were rich and the only currency that mattered. But late at night, when the apartment was quiet and the city hummed beyond their windows, Sarah sometimes allowed herself to wonder if this was all there would ever be. If love alone were enough to carry them through, the charity gala at the Riverside Hotel was not Sarah's usual environment. She was there as part of the catering staff, weaving between tables of New York's elite in her black uniform, visible among the diamonds and designer gowns. She was carrying a tray of champagne when it happened. A sudden movement in the crowd, a misstep, and red wine cascaded down the front of a tall man's tuxedo. God, I'm so sorry, Sarah gasped, immediately reaching for her cloth. The man looked down at his ruined shirt, then up at her. Instead of anger, she saw something unexpected. Amusement. It's just a shirt, he said with a gentle smile. Are you hurt? Sarah blinked, confused. In her experience, wealthy men didn't ask if the help was okay after accidents. I'm fine, but your shirt will survive. He extended his hand. I'm Michael Torres. The name meant nothing to her, but the kindness in his dark eyes made her pulse quicken. Sarah Chen. Sarah, he repeated, as if testing how her name felt. You know, I was thinking this party was getting a bit dull. Thank you for adding some excitement. She laughed, despite herself, then caught herself. This man was clearly out of her league, probably married to some socialite across the room. I should get back to work, she said, stepping back. Wait. Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. I run a foundation. We're always looking for creative people for our outreach programs. Do you have any other talents? Besides wine distribution? Sarah hesitated, then found herself saying, I do graphic design. Freelance. Send me your portfolio, he said simply. I'd like to see your work. As he disappeared into the crowd, Sarah stood frozen, the business card warm in her palm. Michael Torres, CEO, Torres Foundation. Below his name, a phone number that felt like a door to another world. For the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to hope for something more than just survival. 3 months later, Sarah's life had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. Michael had hired her as the foundation's creative director, a position that paid more than her previous 3 jobs combined. But more than that, he had become something she thought she'd never want again, a man who cared. He picked up the girls from school when Sarah worked late. He attended Lily's school play and cheered loudly from the audience. He taught Rose to ride a bike in the park, running alongside her with endless patience. Mama, Rose said one evening, as Sarah tucked her into bed, Michael makes you smile differently. Differently? How? Sarah asked, smoothing her daughter's hair. It's like you're not tired anymore. From the doorway, Lily added quietly, Is he going to be our daddy? The question hung in the air. Sarah's throat tightened. These girls had never asked about their father, had never seemed to miss what they'd never really had. But now, with Michael's presence filling the gaps they hadn't known existed, they were beginning to understand what a family could be. Would you like that? Sarah asked gently. Both girls nodded without hesitation. That weekend, Michael took them to the zoo. Sarah watched him crouch down to their level as they fed the penguins, explaining how the birds cared for their young. The way he looked at her daughters with genuine affection and interest made her chest ache with an emotion she'd forgotten existed. They're amazing, you know, he said that evening after the girls had fallen asleep on the couch between them. They're everything to me, Sarah replied. Michael turned to face her fully. I know. That's what I love about you, Sarah. The way you love them. It's fierce and complete and beautiful. He paused. I want to be part of that. All of it. When he pulled out the small velvet box, Sarah's breath caught. Not because she was surprised, but because for the first time since that night in the hospital, she believed in forever again. Will you marry me? Will you let me love all 3 of you? Through her tears, Sarah whispered, yes, 2 years after the wedding. Sarah stood in the kitchen of their new home, watching through the window as Michael taught the girls to plant tomatoes in their garden. At 7 years old, Lily and Rose had never known hunger, never questioned their worth, never doubted they were loved. The adoption papers had been finalized 6 months ago. Michael was now legally their father, though in every way that mattered. He'd been their dad since that first day at the zoo. Mom, look, Rose called out, holding up a tiny seedling. Daddy says it's going to grow taller than me. Sarah smiled at the word that still made her heart flutter. Daddy, not the man who had abandoned them, but the one who had chosen them. All of them. That evening, after the girls were tucked into their beds in rooms filled with books and toys and security, Sarah found Michael on their back porch looking up at the stars. Penny for your thoughts? She asked, settling beside him. Just thinking about that night we met, he said, pulling her close. You spilled wine on me and I thought it was the luckiest thing that had ever happened. Sarah laughed. You thought getting stained was lucky? No, Michael said, pressing a kiss to her temple. Meeting you was lucky. Meeting them was lucky. This whole beautiful mess of a life we've built together is lucky. Sarah thought of that promise she'd made in the hospital 5 years ago, whispered. Over 2 tiny girls who had come into the world unwanted by their father. They would never feel unloved, she had vowed, as she listened to the gentle sounds of her daughters breathing safely in their beds, and felt the steady heartbeat of the man who had chosen to love them all. Sarah knew she had kept that promise, in ways she never could have imagined. Love had found them after all. Not the love she had begged for from someone who couldn't give it, but the love that chose them freely, completely. Forever, sometimes the most beautiful families aren't the ones you're born into, but the ones that find you when you need them most. The end. Like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.